Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today is another in the installment of the series that I'm doing with the wonderfully talented Reena from Gold Key Guidance Tarot, looking at pairing up the major arcana. And as I've said, if you've seen any of these other ones, we've put a lot of thought into what are natural pairings across the major arcana. This is, I think, the 7th that we're doing. There's 11, obviously, with 22 major arcana cards. So we're getting to the sort of home stretch now. And what we're looking at pairing up this time is Temperance and Strength. So we thought they were a natural pairing because the strengths that we have and the sort of things that Reena will look at, because she's taking the Strength card and the Strength archetype, looking at what are your strengths, where could you build your strengths, all of those things for success and happiness and following your life path. That is helped by Temperance. So Temperance is about having things in balance, head and heart, spirit and material, whatever it may be, so that you feel that you can take a temperate and balanced approach to things. And so strength is built by that. And then also for Temperance, it takes strength sometimes to bring things into balance. So we just thought they were a natural pairing. So what I'll be looking at today is Temperance. And so I'll be looking at where you are in balance, where Temperance is operating well for you, and also where you may be not as much in balance, because let's face it, we're all works in progress. We all get imbalance sometimes. And so where it's working well, how to leverage that, where it's not working so well, how to mitigate that. And we'll also have a bit of a sense of what Strength wants to say about it as well at one point, to connect back to Reena's reading, and just look at a range of ways that you could know in both those circumstances, where you're at and what you can do, and a blessing at the end. So this probably, more than many of them, it doesn't really matter which order you watch them in. I don't think it really makes much difference at all. And so I just want to say quickly, I've had a few comments around collaborations that I've done, where I think people sometimes feel a bit overwhelmed because suddenly it's kind of like, watch 2 videos today. So the thing about the readings that Reena and I are doing is that they're timeless. So if today you've come to this and you think, you know what, out of Temperance and Strength, Strength is the one I really need to look at the moment, go and watch Reena's and come back to mine at whatever time Temperance is important, or vice versa, and really pretty much for all of these. We think they're natural pairings. We think ideally watching them pretty much back to back gives you a holistic view, but you do you. So I don't want people to ever feel that they are being constrained, or that suddenly there's 2 videos I've got to watch today if I'm going to get the messages that I need to get. So with that sort of caveat, presuming you're staying here and you're still going to watch this, as I say, we're going to look at where you're in balance, where you could get more balance. And as always, I'll put down the numbers for those that just like to see that visually to choose, if that's how you choose. But the other way to potentially choose is, like with many, not all, but many of the ones in this series, I've taken a Temperance card out of 3 different tarot decks. So the tarot deck that I'll use in the reading is the tarot deck that you see the Temperance card from. So the imagery here, or the deck, may draw you if you're familiar with it. So that may help you choose, and of course go to more than one reading if you want. So for pile number 1, we have the Temperance card from the traditional Korean tarot. Just want to say quickly, for those who watch my videos for the new tarot decks and so forth, this is one that I recently got from Kickstarter. It's absolutely gorgeous. I do have the Kickstarter campaign connected down in the description box below, but I'm not sure if they're doing this outside of the Kickstarter campaign. But if you want to keep a running sort of eye on that to see if they do, that's a connection that you would have. It's a gorgeous deck. But that's pile number 1. Pile number 2 is the Temperance card from the Fairy Tale Tarot. And pile number 3 is the Temperance card from the tarot I'm calling the Portal Tarot. So all of the details, as I say, for those are in the description box below. So the particular images may draw you, and I will be looking at those and as to what they might be saying about why you were drawn to it as part of the reading. But when you know what reading or readings firstly I want to say, apart from all that sort of stuff about, when and how you watch it, I really do encourage you to watch Reena's reading, because I think your strengths are a core part of you, and Reena is an amazing reader. So don't miss out on that, whether you do it immediately or whether you do it later. And as I say, if you look at these 2 at the moment and you think Strength is what I really need as a basis, go and see that and then come back to Temperance when it suits you. So that's up to you. When you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps, as always, are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So as I said, I want to look at both what is in really good balance, what you have very much in Temperance is in balance, all the various elements, as they say, head and heart, spirituality, materiality, any of the things that we think about to be in balance, sort of the different elements, all of that kind of thing. This is looking at that side of it. And then there's also where we may need to bring something into balance, which is these cards here. And these were all intuitively shuffled and chosen. I didn't know what they were till we got here. You chose this Temperance card. Very, very beautiful card. Like if you're drawn and it makes a lot of sense with what's in balance here. If you are drawn to this reading, I think you were drawn to beauty, the artistic sort of world, the creative world, things looking and being sort of very pleasant in, so sort of like the environment you're in and so forth. And you're highly creative, which is what this is showing. So I think you're naturally drawn. This card, I think, more than anything, was naturally drawing you because of an inner beauty that you have and how you present it into the world as a part of your creativity. I feel like there's a sort of sense of nature and thought. So we have the birds here, beliefs, nature with all the beautiful flowers, and then the kind of area of kind of the materiality. And it's interesting because there's not a lot of water. I don't feel a lot of water. There is a bit here in terms of dealing with flow, but that is where there is a potential imbalance, which we'll get to. So I think that this is showing that the people who come to this particular reading, if you've come to the right reading, you're very, very innately creative. Beauty is important. You could be very physically beautiful yourself, but it's not necessarily about your physicality. It's really more about the beauty of your soul and the beauty of what you're bringing forward. And where this is in balance is that you are incredibly creative, incredibly passionate about what you do. No doubt about that. And with the stillness here, it says in the quietness of the moment, you can hear your inner voice more clearly. You know how to balance off the passion and the inspiration and all of that sort of thing that being creative brings in whatever form creativity works for you. But you also know how to be still. So your balance is between absolute action, creativity, passion, fire, ambition, all of those things, but you're able to balance that off beautifully with stillness to allow the inspiration to come in. So I feel that what you have really well in balance is, as I say, the capacity to hear your inner voice and to create and to find your purpose. And this could be in creativity. I think a lot of it is creativity, but it also could be in love. And there's a bit of an interesting thing here. I think that you are able to sense and see a passionate connection and to be able to be still enough to witness that. There may be an issue around whether the flow is there, if that's the case, and I'll get to that for you at the moment. And so it may well be that what we're looking at here for you is two sides of the same coin. So there could be a side of this which is around whether it's a passion project creatively or whether it's love. You're very, very good at knowing what you want and the newness and bring through the newness and the clarity and to be still and to be present and to witness that and understand what it means. But possibly bringing it into being on an emotional level may be a bit of a challenge, and the same thing around a love relationship. So over here, in terms of what is maybe out of balance, we have void, of course, moon missing. This is where something feels unclear, where it's almost, there's a stillness. And it's an interesting thing because it almost shows the imbalance because we've got water there. Water wants to flow. Water wants to move. The void, of course, moves. Moon sort of feels, even though it's technically still moving through its sort of orbit, obviously, a sense of being missing, of being not clear about what its direction is. And then we have divergence here, which says change your direction or find a new way to travel along familiar paths. So I feel that this is saying that the inspiration is there and bringing it in and balancing everything, your ideas, your inspirations, your creativity, your love, whatever it might be, very well balanced. You really know who you are, Pile One. Like one of your really strong strengths in terms of temperance is you know who you are and you're open to new things. You're open to getting passionate and fired up. All of that works very, very well because you balance within the need for the stillness and the inner voice and then the passion and the action. But there may be something, and these could be, as I say, the same thing, or it could be around more emotional things where you doubt. Like this feels like you don't doubt. This feels like when you decide a passion project or a passion on another level, you really know yourself very well within and you know you want to go after your desire. But this feels as though sometimes you're not sure. And I think you're more likely to follow and feel more aligned with when there is a passion as to when you're not sure. It's more like going with the flow. So I think part of this is also, it's not just whether the emotional side makes you doubt yourself. It may also be that Going with the flow, you feel like you're hostage to, the world and to fate. Whereas going with your passion, you feel, yes, you know yourself very well. So it's almost as though this is a kind of antidote to that in a lot of ways. But you need to know this. You need to know that either around emotional issues or around just, as I say, being with the flow of things, you're not as comfortable with that as when it's self-directed. So those are the sort of energies that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to firstly, with the tarot, we're going to ask a bit more about this. We're going to ask a bit more about where you're really in balance, and then how that, really helps you sort of move forward, get success, happiness, love, whatever it is that you're looking for. So we have the Star reversed, the Six of Pentacles reversed. Sorry, the cards are a bit slippery. The Moon reversed. Okay. The Knight of Wands. The Queen of Wands. Okay. You're very fire-oriented. Your desire, your passion, the things that really make you get up in the morning, like you really know what they are and you really go with it. And you're very self-actualized on that level. You move very quickly towards achieving things. Like if you are truly passionate about something and you know from within it's something core to you, nothing will stop you. And you really balance that, a true understanding of self and then the passion. And it's being shown here. It's been shown because with the Star and the Moon, I think what actually triggers this is actually this over here. I think what happens is in any situation in your life where you feel that you're kind of hostage to fate and to the flow of things and other people's stuff, and you're not hearing what's going on and the direction doesn't feel right, it triggers your sense of, am I following my North Star? You go within with the Moon reversed and you draw up who you really are. You understand things. You go within for information. Highly psychic, highly self-aware. And it allows you to find your right people. I think that more often than not for you, Pole 1, when you feel a little bit out of balance, it's when you're with the wrong people. This is why it's saying you're not going to have the connection you want, the same sort of passion, and you need to find a new path. So I think that this is often an antidote to this. It doesn't mean, however, that you couldn't sometimes have these things anyway. You couldn't sometimes just feel within, even if nothing is necessarily making you feel off course, you will sometimes feel, am I really following my true potential? Am I really with my right people? And you go within and get the information. That takes you to moving very rapidly towards this sort of fiery, creative self-actualization. So this is a very powerful energy that you have. But as I say, you do need to be aware that sometimes this is your antidote to this situation. So let's have a look at what isn't in balance. So now we're looking at this side of things, as I say, which is where I think it's more the flow of life when you aren't necessarily the innovator, the instigator, the passionate one moving forward. A little bit more about how that impacts you and how to best bring that into balance. The High Priestess, well, that's part of the answer about how to bring it into balance right there. Four of Pentacles, the Empress, Queen of Cups reversed, Nine of Wands. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to say first up is it's very interesting because, as I say, like I'm trying to get like with that water element and the moon void, of course. I do think that one side of that is when things are outside of your control. And I will talk about that as to how you can bring that into balance. But I also think you're so passionate, you're so directed. There may be sometimes with the Queen of Cups reversed where connecting that to your heart is a little bit difficult. I know that might sound weird because it's like we can be passionate about things, but how do we connect it to our heart? I think you're very, very good at bringing in the inspiration and then having the passion to take it through. But I think that sometimes, every once in a while, you might think, is this what is really in my heart, or is it just what's inspired me? So to give an analogy, you might be sort of someone who writes, and you might get an inspiration, a great idea, and then about halfway through doing it, you're sort of feeling a bit lost in what you're doing, and you're thinking, I actually don't love this, so why am I doing it? And it's how do you actually work out the different path to get back to the inspiration and to kind of passionately fall in love with it again as opposed to emotionally. So I think there's a clue here. I think that it's saying with the Nine of Wands, it's like whether you sometimes don't complete something because you've sort of started off very passionate, but then you go, I'm not sure if this is what I want to do. So I think one of the things it's saying, and I'll get to the rest of this, is that when you are in the process of doing it, always checking in that it's heading towards the person that you want to be and the original idea. It again, it makes me think of like there's two different ways of writing a book from what they say. And one they call a plotster, which is someone who's got it all plotted out to start with. And then they say a pantster, somebody who runs on the seat of their pants. And it's almost as though you get so enthusiastic, you're more like the latter. And somewhere along the line, sometimes you lose steam. But you can, if you've always reconnected back and you think about what's the overall vision, you will find the energy you need to sort of complete something. So more often than not, you're not on the wrong path. It just might be recalibrating it. So that's around the creative thing. And it may also be around relationships. You may sort of sometimes feel, I was really passionate about this, but do I still feel it in my heart? I think if that's the case, you've got to go by what your heart says. So don't feel you have to complete something if it no longer feels okay. Sometimes the best way to understand and bring this into balance is to understand when it's a message from another part of you, your heart, as opposed to maybe your spiritual sort of and passionate sort of inspiration, and it does need to be listened to. This is definitely, again, saying you're a creative person. This is why this is important. It's important that you do still feel that you are in control of the creation and that you are in flow. So focusing on, again, what was the inspiration originally? What are you trying to create? This is how you can recalibrate and bring things back. It has a tendency to stop you. It has a tendency to make you get stuck and to be a bit worried about the next step on something. So, and it's interesting, it's a Four of Pentacles here with a Six of Pentacles reversed there. This is suggesting to me connecting with others who are like you, other creatives or whatever, or even if it's a relationship, checking in with the other person. There is a way to kind of work through this. But the key thing is your psychic and spiritual ability. Your High Priestess is not going to steer you wrong. So basically, when you feel this, when you feel a bit stuck, when you feel like, am I in love with this anymore? Go into the process that's really well in balance. Go into that. Go into what is my soul telling me, and that will give you the answer. So it'll tell you when you need to sort of move altogether from something, when you just need to course correct it, and when it's actually not as out of balance as you think. So let's just get 3 cards from the Strength reading, so that, as I say, go and see Reena's reading around this, because you have a lot of great strengths. It's how you manage them as you're bringing them into being, I think. So let's just see what Strength has to say. We'll just get 3 cards. The Three of Pentacles reversed. The Nine of Pentacles. The Magician. Okay. So Strength is just saying is actually telling me here that there's a little bit of a nuance to what I was saying. Now, I said that there's a possibility, certainly if there's a love relationship involved, checking back in with that person and making sure it is a meeting of equals is probably all you really need to do. But this is saying more generally, this is still an internal thing. You're not necessarily the natural collaborator. And there's nothing wrong with that. Often visionaries who are very passionate, they just need to do their thing. So one of your strengths is that you don't need other people you only need your own self. And you are able to create and bring into being and manifest and bring abundance through your own work. You don't actually need other people to help you. Now, this doesn't mean you can't ask a friend for advice or whatever, but you don't need it. You have all the skills. You do. This is the thing. It's all there. It's like sometimes you just get this doubt because either, as I say, it's not going quite the way you expect because, we have to be in the world and we have to deal with the material world. Or you feel a block on some level with your inspiration or whatever it might be. And that's a point where you start to doubt yourself. This is saying don't doubt yourself. Just go back to the original vision. Recalibrate if you need to. It's all you need to do. You're more in control than you think, but just sometimes because the creative process is a bit like this, you sometimes feel like, is this even going the direction I want? That's when you tend to get out of balance. But going back to where you're in balance is because you have the skills and it's all within you, pile 1. Okay, so we're going to then get some other sort of bits of information from Temperance. So again, 1 card in each. I'm going to use 4 different decks here. 1 card in each case for around what's working really well, 1 card around what needs to be brought into balance. So firstly, we just want to look at the spiritual approach that you're using. So around the creative, dynamic, passionate, very self-aware energy, the spiritual approach that's working really well. Spirit crane. Oh, isn't that interesting? Cranes. There's something about cranes with you because there's cranes on this. And I felt like that was the mind. Spirit crane, dance with the divine. You'll very, very strongly, really trust your inspiration because you're really psychic and you're really strongly connected. You may also find that cranes are a spirit guide for you. Then what's not in balance? What spiritually, is either an antidote to what's not in balance or a little bit more information about what's not in balance. Heart energy, gratitude with growth. Yeah, it's something to do with the emotions. I think that's the thing. It's like it's so strong and so fiery and so passionate to start with. But particularly I think if something is a long-term thing and you have to deal with a lot of other people because you're a natural individual, it sometimes makes you feel disconnected from your heart. But reconnecting to your heart is the way. It's a way to sort of like calibrate back and get back to this inspiration and know what you wanted to do. So I also want to use a divination deck to see spiritual gifts that are either, in this case, work very well with this, and in this case you have, but you maybe block a bit, that could be worth bringing out. So around Spirit Crane, we have, or around the inspiration, runes, perception. Yeah, it's all about perception. It's all about perception. Symbols, runes. You could literally use runes to help you connect with this, but I think it's just all saying, it's sort of like there is a language to what's coming through, because I feel like runes are a kind of language, an energetic language. Then if we look at what you may have either latently or that you could really, probably you do have it latently, that would make sense for looking at it from this perspective, but maybe bring forward to help you bring this heart energy and the emotional side of things into better balance. Candle, illumination. Yeah, it's pointing right back to the beginning. It's just saying it's all there. It's like, don't doubt what you're doing. You're actually around this stuff, you're really on point, but you start to doubt it when you're sort of dealing with the flow of the world. Reconnect back to your heart, reconnect back to that initial inspiration. Okay, so let's also have a look at signs you will see. Signs when this energy is coming in, signs when this might be starting to get a bit blocked. So signs around the original inspiration, creativity, passion and drive. Phoenix. Wow, there's something about birds with you. Crane and phoenix. So if you are feeling this, you can rise from the ashes. But there's also a sense here of continual renewal. It's like what's going on, I think, is that because it's so strongly connected to your spirituality and so strongly connected to who you are authentically, is that each time you create, you're renewing yourself. And knowing that flight, there's something about flight. There's something about moving fast. So a phoenix energy, seeing a phoenix, reading about phoenixes, anything like that could be an energy, maybe saying the next one is coming through, the next inspiration is coming through. And then something that could tell you when you're starting to get a little bit blocked and you have to think about this. Infinity. Okay, so that's interesting because it's almost like this is the point. It's like this is the individual self-aware, self-actualized energy, right? That's it in an essence. That's where you're really balanced. But dealing with everything else and the fact that we are just one speck of the divine in infinity, it's like, I think that's when you sort of feel like, am I going to be able to do this? How much can I control it? And you disconnect. Because infinity also is so kind of abstract as a concept. I think this, so when you start to think about your place in time, your legacy, infinity, the nature of the universe, or if you see infinity symbols or anything like that, it might be the sign that you're starting to wonder how much control you have. And this is reminding you to go back to your heart and go back to your vision. You're more in control than you think. Also, I'm going to ask for a spirit guide energy for you around maximizing this and mitigating this. So a spirit guide energy for you in your really balanced self-actualization is Horus, clear seeing, intention, perspective, knowledge. Divinely inspired knowledge, don't doubt that. Very, very psychic, very, very creative, very, very connected. Okay, and then a spirit guide to help you when you feel a bit blocked emotionally or you feel a bit overwhelmed, because I think that's what it's talking about. Archangel Azrael, death and rebirth, life changes, transitions. Sometimes I'm amazed with what comes out, because I think what this is saying, Archangel Azrael, this is picking up the phoenix. When you are feeling blocked, when you're doubting things, he helps you get to the phoenix. He helps you get to the rebirth of the idea, the bringing it back to its purity. So I really feel this is saying, it's like you really need to back yourself, because you worry when you get into this thing, whether it's emotionally or creatively or whatever, that like things are outside of your control. Azrael lets you let go of that and get back to to the transition to what is you're trying to create. Very interesting people, pole 1, I have to say. So we also want to get a wild card for each of these for you to consider, and also a question to ask. So a wild card is just an energy out of the blue that might be almost contradictory to some of what we're doing here, but it's just another perspective. So when we're looking at how you're beautifully in balance around your creativity, passion, self-actualization, what's a wild card energy? Oh, wow. I am the key. It's not in contradiction. It's really saying it strongly. Trust yourself, opportunity, inner solutions, new beginnings. It's who you are. And I think what you do with that, even though it's largely about your own journey, you'll help other people. You're the key for others. This is why you have really strong spiritual sort of inspiration. Then a wild card around where you start to feel a bit overwhelmed and wonder if you're in as much in control as you think you are, or that you originally thought you are, is inner beauty, self-love, romantic feelings, falling in love. Okay, this may particularly trigger around love, and you might think, am I enough? But remember, I felt a sense of beauty right from the beginning here. Like, remember that you are beautiful inside and out. And like this side, the achievement of what you do and the clarity of what you have should give you self-love and so forth. But if you find this is particularly an issue when you're falling in love, remember how beautiful you are. Remember how special you are, pole 1. Okay, and let's get a question for each. So the questions come from the Stories Oracle, which are constellations, but they have questions that are worth considering. So when you're really in balance and you're really firing on all cylinders, what is a question that you need to consider? And we have Perseus. Given the chance to gaze into the void, wouldn't you? Now isn't that interesting? The moon void, of course. I think this is saying don't be afraid of this. It's all part of the process. And in fact, whatever it is, whether it's falling in love, whether it's, like where you sort of feel a bit overwhelmed in a creative thing or something that you're trying to do, really experiencing that will actually replenish and revive and better bring into balance what you're doing here. So I think don't be afraid of this. So a question around that side where sometimes you feel a bit out of balance is Leo. What if you are so much stronger than you realize? Okay. Spirit's been pretty clear for you guys here, like pretty clear. You are very strong, and like recognizing that and owning that and valuing that's really all you need to do. Then you're going to kind of get back into this phase. So that's really lovely. We're going to finish with a blessing, but I think the whole reading's a blessing. I think it's saying, trust yourself. But let's just finish with a blessing for you around what Temperance is bringing to you today. A blessing to shield and safeguard you. Okay, yeah, you're very strongly connected to, I think, the spiritual realms. And when you're worried, it's going to help you. It'll shield you. It'll get you back to being able to focus on that so you move forward. And again, this time we've got ravens. So we've got like phoenix, we've got the cranes, we've got ravens. There's something about birds. I think that for many of you, you're very, very strong bird spirit guides. And so, one is about the divine inspiration. One is about the renewal. Ravens are about prophecy, about bringing the new in, about understanding the consequences of things. You have all that you need. Do not be afraid. Very, very beautiful soul. Really meant to sort of bring in some lovely things. Don't doubt yourself. That's what it's really saying. I really would suggest going and seeing Reena's reading. It could be fascinating to see what strength she picks up for you, because I think you are very strong, but I think you doubt it sometimes, pile 1. I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. As I said in the introduction, we're going to look at both what is working really well, where you're in balance, and what is potentially where you're a little bit out of balance. And looking at this, it's interesting because I do these readings in order. So I've just done Pile 1, and there's a similarity in as much as I think that they're two sides of the same thing. It's like where you're really in balance is also where you could go out of balance, if that makes sense. And I think therefore the reading will be about how to keep things in balance and understand the force towards imbalance. I don't know whether it'll be the same with Pile 3, but I definitely feel it here. Firstly, you came to the reading with the Temperance card from the Fairy Tale Oracle. So you may be drawn to fairy tales and symbology and all of those things. You could be very much connected to archetypes and that sort of energy, certainly choosing this. And I think there's a kind of a sign of that with New Vision and Lightweaver there. It's also the most traditional version from like Rider-Waite. It's a Rider-Waite version of it with an angel sort of pouring various elements into a cup. So I feel like there is a sense of a lot of angelic energy around this. Again, the 2 cards that you got from the Rainbow Oracle suggest that. So to me, you are sort of someone who's connected spiritually. You're someone that's looking for the sort of balance where all is included. And that's interesting with friendship here, where things are, all the elements are involved and so forth. And I think you're a deeply spiritual person. Now, that's partly why you're very much in balance. Now, the interesting thing is, when I looked at these, maybe not talking about New Vision yet, but when I looked at gratitude, being grateful for what you received today, 6th house routine, it really strongly made me think of things like Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Confucianism, all of those sort of things. I remember there's a Confucius saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, after enlightenment, chop wood. You are really balanced around your spirituality. You are, it's interesting because new visions come in. It says your view of the world is changing, look beyond the illusion to the most spectacular views. You're really starting to, I would say, go through an ascension path or really developing spiritually. You're getting more and more kind of, I think, angelic energy coming towards you. All of those things that are happening, but you are not getting big-headed about it. And you are incorporating it into your day-to-day routine and your service to others. So this is a delightful energy. You are a delightful group of people, I have to say. And every time you get that, you get this new vision, you get this download or whatever, as I say, you make it very real. You make it very, very much part, you inculcate it. You walk the talk, let's put it that way. So you're very balanced about bringing in your spiritual understanding and making it on a material and interpersonal thing very balanced. Where you can go out of balance is when you start to think it through too much. It's really interesting, this sort of energy, because they're similar in a way. This is an earth sign energy. And let me just think for a second. So I just had a brain freeze for a second. So I just paused to allow myself to think about it. Virgo is actually in the 6th house. So in a, you know, like Virgo rules the 6th house. So the very thing that you do here is also the thing where you can go off course. And it may be in connection with others. It may also be what your role is in connection with others. So you have a service to others mindset. That's a beautiful thing. But what can happen is when you are thinking about that, when you're moving from the vision to being the light weaver, and the light weaver says you are a vehicle of light creating new paths of joy, weave your magic into the world. And we have friendship, which is, you know, you need your friends, you need connection. You're very other person centered, but I think what happens is that you can do this. You're very spiritually developed and you know what you're doing and all of that's fine. But then when you try and help others with it, you might overanalyze, you might overcook it. It might be that you haven't fully understood that just by living what you're doing, as an example, you do this. It's almost like you get out a little bit out of balance when you're thinking about how do I help others? How does it connect with others? How do I transmit this message? And you tend to overthink it. So, and want to sort of see, and you may even have a bit of a sort of frustration about wanting to change workplaces, wanting to change material things for others and so forth. So you feel you have a mission, and I don't think you're wrong, but I think your presence and how you balance it as a, you know, full of gratitude, full of enlightenment sort of energy is in fact the thing. It's only when you feel like, oh, and how do I actually bring this into the world and how do I bring it to others that it kind of gets overcomplicated. So that's interesting. So let's have a look at what tarot wants to tell us. So we're firstly going to start with looking at what is working really well with this and how you can leverage that more. Then we're going to have a look at this as the point of imbalance that can occur, and then we'll ask strength what strength feels to connect it to Reena's reading. So firstly, what's working really well, what's really in balance? 2 of Cups, Page of Wands, 7 of Swords, Queen of Pentacles reversed, King of Cups reversed. Okay, for a start, what this is saying to me is you're probably, this is why you overanalyze. You don't really need to analyze. This is actually working fine too. It's only when you kind of start to doubt it that it doesn't work and you get kind of tied up in knots. Because this is saying your relationship energy is working really well. Like that beautiful energy, as I say, it's a delightful energy. It draws in people and does draw in friends. Page of Wands, you have a sense of your direction. You're sort of like, you know what your ambitions are. You're moving forward really well with that. And Seven of Swords, you understand the environment that you're in and how to deal with it. It's also interesting, we've got Pentacles, Swords, Wands, and Cups. And as I say, this particular version it feels very much like all the elements being brought together. So that is working well. Your biggest issue, though, is once you're in the material world, and we will look at this more around this, is it's the one where you're not sure where you can actually go off course. So it's in balance. You actually really have got a very clear idea about this. You're very much walking the talk, great relationships with others, very healing energy for others. But you might feel, like you might feel you have to keep shifting and changing, or you might feel like, how do you make this materialize? And I think what Spirit is trying to say is you materialize it by your being and by the way that you do what you do. It's not that you have to, and in a way you can't, even with healing, you can't heal someone else. You can show them through your own sort of life things that could work for them, but they need to heal themselves. So the best thing you can do is be the example, so to speak. So let's have a look at what is, when you get into this, over analysis, how do I do this? What's my mission? All of that kind of thing. What's going on there? What is a little bit more about that and how you can mitigate it? Death, Queen of Wands, the Star reversed, the Ten of Cups reversed, Nine of Pentacles reversed. Okay, so I think it's actually telling me why this is happening more than anything. When it is just for you, then you can make the choice easily. When you think you have a mission and you need to do something for others, you're not sure about the right choices to make. You're worried, in fact, about whether you could be a bit overwhelming. Like whether, you on one level you want to help people and have the right connections and do all that sort of stuff, but part of you is quite egoless, and like this thing makes you start to think, is that egotistical? It's like, if I get all of this, am I being egotistical if I think I have a mission? I do think you have a mission. I just think that your being is the mission. But I think that you would really push back on that. You don't want to be an egotist. You would feel like that's not following the right principles, because this is like, you sort of understand you're one of many. It's just you understand it better than most people. That's why you're good at an example. But it makes you, when you want to like try and work out a choice for how to help others, and you do want to be of service to others, it kind of blocks you. And I think this is telling me why. I think that maybe you either were very different to your family, or you've been very different to some of the emotional situations when you've had some heartbreak. You've had some heartbreak that's led to this, and you've had situations where either others weren't loyal to you, you couldn't sort of keep friendships or whatever, or you have felt that you had to move away from things. So it's like, if you take on a mission, are you going to see it through? So I think that the thing that Spirit really wants you to see here is that, like, just the way that you do this becomes an example. It's like you don't have to get into overthinking it. Your friends are drawn to you, and others will see the example. You don't have to fix them. They'll see it. That's what it's saying. So let's see what Strength has to say. And as I say, go and see Reena's reading for more detail on this, because I think you underestimate the strength. This is a very strong energy. You can't get there unless you've dealt with a lot of stuff, a lot of ego stuff, a lot of false spirituality, all that. You're very pure, pile two. So let's see what the strengths are. Ace of Wands reversed. Oh, it's interesting, all these wands together. Two of Swords reversed. Seven of Wands reversed. Okay. Yeah, strength's saying you don't have to even deal with this issue over here. Like, it's like, don't limit yourself, because you're not egotistical. You've almost got to get over being the opposite of that. You're almost a bit too self-effacing, Strength is saying. But equally, you don't have to make decisions for anybody else. You only have to make decisions for yourself, and you're more than capable of doing that. And this is not, if you have had heartache and issues with others and disagreements, you don't have to have the battle. It's not, that's not, the people who are going to be benefited by being around you, and it will be many, are not the ones that are in competition with you. So it may be saying that some of what the disappointment has been competition. You've come with a very open heart to things, very spiritually advanced, open heart, and you found people who are really competitive. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Just don't feel, I think for some of you, you may have been around spiritual groups and you've very much taken in the sort of the truth of it, which is humble, which is of service to others and all of that kind of thing. But you've been about others where it's been more about, who's the biggest light worker or whatever. So this is just to say that it being more in this space is all you need to deal with that space, because it's doubting this space that makes you go into that space. So we're going to get some other sort of information from a range of different decks that I thought might show some interesting perspectives. So firstly, I want to look at your spiritual approach. So we're going to have a look at what's working and also what over here is a bit out of balance. So what is really working in the spiritual approach that you have at the moment, what you're really in balance with. The guide and the gift. Okay. That's really beautiful. I think it's really interesting that you came to the fairy tale tarot, because we've got like a unicorn here. You're very unique. You're very strongly guided. And it is a gift. It is a gift to know what doorways to go through. But think about it. The guide is there, the spirit animal is there, and then the person is going through on their own. Like, it's just doing it and being observed is the thing. So I think you are a guide and you have a gift, but it is in being who you are. It's not in trying to sort of like, spread a light worker message. You do it by your own journey. So when we look over here, it might be dealing with sort of competition, spiritual competition, whatever it might be that's putting you out of balance when where you feel like you have to overanalyze it. Spiritual approach, eclipse, revelations, destiny speaks. Okay, go within. Eclipse times are probably very powerful for you. Go within. There is a destiny around what you're doing, but I think this is kind of saying the destiny is called to you. It works itself out. I think this is the message that it's saying. But sometimes you're going to have to go within and almost go into the dark night of the soul in a way, eclipse energy, to really see that again and remember. Because I feel like there is this kind of almost, you're a light worker, but in a different way. And like, I think you're around competitive energies. Let's see what sort of divinatory energies work for you at the moment and might be useful to sort of latent abilities maybe that might be useful around this. So around your sort of humble, beautiful, but very spiritually aligned presence, we have footprints, direction. Okay, so yeah, direction. This is a thing. Like, I think you're on the right path. You wonder if you're on the right path. Like, you really do when you're analysed to death. But you really are on the right path just by staying on that path, because you're divinely guided. So be aware of that. Also, the footprints of others. Like, I feel like, as I said, I felt very strongly like Zen Buddhism, Confucianism, all of those kinds of traditions, the footprints of others could be helpful for you. Then when we look at what might be a latent ability that you maybe not really accessing yet, but you could to stop you from overanalyzing and stop you from dealing with competitive energies and all that kind of thing. Wishbone, affirmation. Yeah. Affirming back to who you are. Making a wish. You are going to be guided. Don't feel like you've got to have the game plan over here. Simplicity. Like, it's the power and the balance of simplicity, and you're making it complex over here. Just go back to the simplicity. That's all you need to do. Let's see some signs that will show up. So firstly, signs that are showing up that you're in balance, signs that could be telling you you're starting to go out of balance. So signs that you are in balance. Celebration. Yeah, just enjoyment. Celebrations around, and then that's the gratitude energy. Knowing that you are enough. Celebrating with true friends as opposed to ones that might be kind of frenemies or that kind of thing. And hearing about celebrations might be sort of, well, people wanting to celebrate what you do. Allow them to do that. It's not you being egotistical. Then the sign that you might see if you're starting to get a bit out of balance and overanalyze. Time. Okay, oh yeah, that makes sense. If you really start thinking about the time and how quickly are things being done and what scheduling do we need and how do we manage our time. Or, if you see 11, 11, 12, 12, those sort of things also could be a part of it. And trust me, I don't think I'm here like you are, but I'm a bit like this. I overanalyze, so I know there's energy over here, but I'm not where you are. So like that sort of sense of pressure, I think, tells you that. Just go back to the simplicity. So let's also get you spirit guides for both sides of this. So a spirit guide around, and you are strongly guided here, around where you're really beautifully in balance. Sekhmet, fierceness, rebuilding, destruction, like anything that... for some of you, this has come off the back of pain, I think. It's the kind of purity of soul that comes from pain. But she's strong there to make sure you're looked after. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. You're on the right path. And anything that wanted to bring this energy in, she's going to deal with it, so don't worry. Then when we're looking at this, another guide that will also help you around getting into that kind of over-analytical side of things. Archangel Sandalphon, music, answered prayers, Earth Star. Like, it's like Archangel Sandalphon, is the music of the spheres, all of that kind of thing. Very healing, lovely energy, a twin to Metatron. So this is about you going back to the rhythm and the music of your soul and answering your prayers. So because you've really developed, they're going to protect you because it's the energy that the universe wants. But as I say, this is a kind of busy analytical energy of the sort of day-to-day. Okay, I want to get you a wild card for each of these. So it either may be something that really affirms these, or it might be over here, a bit of another trick about how to get out of this. Over here, something to be aware when you could be slipping into that energy. So firstly, a wild card around what you have in balance, pile 2. The Mermaid and the Puppet, two-phase manipulation, inaccessible heart fascination. Okay, there's something, like I'm just going to say, and this is more telling you when you might feel you're coming out of that energy and going to this energy. There's something very competitive and manipulative. You may have had frenemies, very much possible with that card being there. I think that you will know if you feel you're being manipulated. People are saying you want to be of service, you want to do this, and suddenly you're on somebody else's time frame, or other people are judging you, or there's competition. That energy is to tell you that you're not with the right people. Because this beautiful open-hearted simplicity could be a little bit vulnerable to that. Sekhmet's going to help you look after it, but could be a little bit vulnerable to that. So you have to understand, because you're such a pure heart, you'll think everybody's a pure heart, but trust me, not everybody's a pure heart. So that's an energy. Then a wild card over here about when you're dealing with that sort of thing. I am searching, initial project, learning, training, blessing of loneliness. Yeah, I think this is just detach. You're on your own pathway. Don't let this get in the way. It's also, I think, sometimes it's going to be picking up because of the over-analysis. It could be that you start to convince yourself all the analysis is you're just searching for more answers, and you need to go back to simplicity. So it's a bit of both. It's like separate out from others if they're causing that. But I think it's also not using this as a kind of a escape clause from going back to balance, of going, I've got to kind of think it through. I'm searching, I've got to do that. That's maybe not, you've already found, really. So that's interesting there. Also want to have a question for you to ask in relation to each of these. So the question for keeping this beautiful, simple, powerful, balanced spiritual energy that you have and being such a beautiful example to others is, Orion, what uncharted territory will you explore? Yeah, feel ready to do that. Feel ready to do that, because you'll do it in the right way. You'll do it in service to others. You'll do it in a humble way. You'll bring in the inspiration. And remember, you had the inspiration at the beginning. Like, see it as an adventure rather than a problem to solve. So what's the question around where you get out of balance and you overanalyze? Equilus. How can you offer anything authentic to the world if you can't retreat inward? Yeah, it's saying retreat inward. Like, there's something complex and difficult about the environment you guys find yourselves in, like family, friends, work, whatever it is. You need to be able to go within and get back to this still center, because that's all you need to do anyway to be helping others. But I think you feel like you have to be more out in the world. So to finish off, I just want to get a blessing for you from the Temperance card. A blessing to lift sadness. Yeah, there's a sadness over here. Now, the interesting thing is that you have really done it. Saying that you're in balance with that. It's just when you get back out into this sort of thing and you start to overanalyze, it's almost like you want to avoid a sadness that happened before. And all this is saying is just living authentically to that beautiful simplicity and stillness and balance that you have, and not getting involved in that kind of thing too much, and not thinking other people's problems are problems you have to solve will take away the sadness for you. So you're beautiful souls, as I said at the beginning. And it's interesting, I'm also getting like Sandalphon but I get the minor key. So songs and music in the minor key has an inherent melancholy. I think that maybe listening to that might help you process some of that energy, any sort of songs along those lines, because songs and music along those lines, it's very clearing and healing as an energy. It allows you to feel that and process and let it go. So I'm feeling strongly to mention that as well. As I say, beautiful souls, I do hope that you've enjoyed the reading. I hope that it's been helpful and it resonates for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So as I said in the introduction, we have what is really in balance and what is a little bit out of balance. And it's been really interesting. All the readings have been like this. And if you've been to any of the others, you'll know it. I thought this would be quite starkly different things. But what I'm seeing in these is that the balance is there, and then there is the potential trigger for imbalance, and it's pretty much come up in all of them. So that's interesting. It's obviously what Spirit wants to talk about. Now, the interesting thing for you is you came to the Temperance from the Portal Tarot, or what I call the Portal Tarot, and it's the most unusual of the three, I think. It's very much your kind of teal and aquamarine and blues and greens. So I feel like there's a real sense around colour that's important here. So this is a lot around, I think, communication around the throat chakra with the blues, and the heart chakra, what really matters to you in your heart. And I feel like if you see this, I don't know how clear it is, there seems to be an angel who's looking at another angel much further away. So I think the thing about connection, and are you moving towards things or are you moving away, these are critical periods, I think, where temperance is important for you. And there's a reason I say that given these cards, because on one hand, you are very balanced with change, and you can almost see things at a distance. It doesn't really phase you at all when change comes in. You see it as necessary. You have a sense of connection to the spirit world, which is almost like a muse. You actually find change is like inspiring for you, and you may well be a muse to others. This says you're a source of inspiration, become the muse of your own life, and breathe imagination into your soul. So I think change within your own life, you're very hopeful about. Anything that you do, you have that in balance. You're comfortable with it. You see it as a growth opportunity. You see it as an inspiration. And as I say, I think you might operate as a muse, and you may have muses. There's a really good, and this is the communication energy too, telepathy I'm getting, that kind of thing. So when a change is either something where you are inspiring yourself to improve things in your life, or when you're potentially inspiring others, you're very in balance. You epitomize change as a positive energy. Interestingly enough, though, that is very inspirational. It's very trusting. It's very go with the flow, and that's when you're in flow. Over here, though, where you can get out of flow, Aquarius, I know, can be when you are so sure that what you are doing is the right thing for others or for yourself, and the transformation energy is there, but there's a loss associated with it. It almost feels like this is getting faith and this is losing faith, and so then you need to get faith again, because it looks to me as though on one level you are naturally a change agent, but sometimes when the rest of the world comes in, you may be so sure of something, you're not seeing all the elements of transformation and where there is a loss associated with it. So you've kind of just gone, I'm going with it because I've got the inspiration, I see this as hopeful, and you haven't necessarily calibrated for transformation. Nearly always does mean loss. It doesn't, and that we do need to grieve things. It's not necessarily bad, but it's almost like it surprises you because you're so sure. I think that many of you are very psychic. You're probably very good at predicting the future, those sort of things. So maybe you think everything that comes through is so clear that you do know, and then you find, well, you're interacting with the rest of the world. And transformation, the transformation energy is ultimately good, but it comes at a cost. And I think this is why I feel like this temperance, and it's interesting, this temperance angel is not looking out at us like the others are. This is looking over to someone else or something else, either something in the past or a future that is going to, and it's much less clear. And I think this is the thing. It's when you're absolutely sure you've got the complete roadblock, that's when the transformation could knock you out of balance, because there'll be more than you think. And that's true of any of us, okay? But when you just go, that's okay, I'm not going to kind of like overthink it. And this is a little bit similar to one of the other readings. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to go with the change, because I know ultimately I am safe. And you come with a hopeful thing, then you know that the transformation is ultimately for the good, even if it is, changeable, and even if it's challenging sometimes. Whereas over here, it's more like, well, I knew what it was going to be. Why did this happen? So I think it's a don't overplan it type of energy that we're looking at. So what we're going to do with tarot is we're firstly going to ask a bit more about this, where you are amused to others or to yourself, where you see that as inspirational rather than upsetting, that you're a work in progress, things are only going to get better, all of that which is accurate, where that works well. So let's see what Spirit wants to say about that. Three of Cups. Five of Cups reversed, Two of Wands, the Devil reversed, Nine of Wands. Okay, so what's working really well with all of this is it is a celebratory sort of thing. Like you're very much a glass half full type of person, which is wonderful. I tend to be a bit of a glass half empty, so I do admire people who are glass half full, and you are that. And you can connect with others and celebrate. And I do think there's an interchange here. So I think sometimes you inspire others, sometimes others inspire you. And there's a real sense of camaraderie there. It's come out of letting go of disappointment. So there's something in all of this where it's the things will get better. It's like you can really sense it. You can almost taste it. Like when you're in balance, you just know the change is going to, even if it has challenges, it's going to get better. And you're early. It's like right early in this, you've got the inspiration and you're not yet too concerned about the details. It's a liberating force. So for you, change when you're in this phase is liberating, and you don't care too much about the details. You just want to go through the process, and you know that you've got the energy to see it through. Even if it's, it takes a bit longer than you expect or anything like that. Nine of Wands is always like near the end of the marathon when you get your second wind. So when you keep it really simple like that, don't try and kind of plan it out too much, and you see it as a celebration that is yet to unfold, it works really, really well, and you stay in beautiful balance. Let's have a look at what happens when you get a bit out of balance. Nine of Pentacles. Oh, that's interesting with the Three of Cups there. Seven of Swords reversed. Okay. King of Swords reversed. Seven of Wands. Justice. Okay. All right. This makes a lot of sense, and I'm only chuckling because, gee, I have this energy. So you're a bit like me. I mean, like, different as well, I'm sure. But, like, this is saying, when you get out of balance, is when you are open to the thing, and you inspire some and others inspire you, and you're working in harmony and all that kind of beautifully in balance. When you start to go, I have to manage this, rather than connecting with others, I have to be independent. When you start saying, I know what I'm doing, I'm realistic, I'm not going to get disappointed again, I'm going to work this all out, you might fool yourself a bit. It might be that this is where, with like the King of Swords reversed and the Seven of Swords, it's like this, I know. This is the risk for you is when you kind of like move from the inspiration and the idea to, I've got all the answers and my mind knows what to do. And so I'm going to, my mind is the strength here. And it's saying that's not really the strength for you, because the strength for you is the inspiration and the change and the going with the flow. That's your magic. That's your power. When you move into this, you might feel that you're going to go through the change with the level of transformation without any losses. Like, I know, I've done this before, I know what I'm doing. But that brings you grief, because change always does mean something goes and something else comes in. So it's like it's your mind can be your own enemy here, and it makes you maybe feel this is a bit of a competition, and you've just got to like intellectually bring things into balance. You know you're right, all that kind of thing. And this is not to say that you're kind of deluded about your way or the highway or anything like that. This is just more that when you start in this space and you're really in balance, you're kind of just going with the flow of it, and you're letting the change happen, and you're letting the inspiration take you. And then somewhere along the way, when you get out of balance, and this is not going to always happen, but when you get out of balance, and I suspect it's when the transformation is bigger than you expect, you go into your mind, and that kind of, it surprises you, because it doesn't protect you from where we have to let go of things. Whereas this side would allow you to understand that and go with the flow. So let's ask what strength wants to say. And I do encourage you to go and see Reena's reading to hear more about your strengths, because you're very inspirational and so forth. And your mind is very strong. It's just not letting it take you over. What does strength have to say about how you stay in balance? Knight of Cups reversed. Ten of Wands. The High Priestess reversed. Okay, yeah. Your strengths are great. Strengths saying, when you go out of your heart, this is in your heart space, this is in your mind space. You make things more burdensome for yourself, and you cut off some of your inspiration. So you can't project, this is what I'm going to say, you can't project plan your change. That's what it's basically saying. If you go into that kind of mindset about it, I mean, project planning is very good and appropriate in workplaces and all that sort of stuff, but this is much more personal, I think. This is about self-transformation and so forth, and relationship transformation. You can't project manage that, but you might be very, very good at doing that. But in this case, around this energy, it takes you out of balance. It takes you away from your inspiration, it takes you away from your heart, and it puts a burden on it that it doesn't need. It doesn't need. Okay, so to help a little bit more, I'm going to use a variety of decks and get like different types of information around these two things as well. So we're starting first about the spiritual approach that's really working for you when you're in balance, the spiritual approach that might help when you get out of balance. So what's working for you when you're in balance? Spirit owl, sacred secrets. Yeah, you're a muse, you're connected in. There's a lot of wisdom coming in. You have the wisdom. Actually, that's the point. There's the mind and then there's wisdom. I would say wisdom is intuition and the mind connected. You got to have both, but like when you go just into the mind, you can cut off your intuition. Wisdom is bringing those two together. That's what keeps you in balance. That's what will help you move forward and see the promise in something. What kind of spiritual approach would help if you start moving more into the I know, I analyze, as I say, there's a bit of a similarity between two readings here. I'll be interested to see if some of you went to both. But what do you do in this thing? What would spiritually help? Oh, that's interesting, the guide and the gift. Now, that did come up in the other reading with this one. So I do think for some of you, there's a connection with another reading. But beyond that, it's like remembering that you have a guide and a gift, your gift of inspiration, remembering that you have that, and that you're not alone. You've got sort of like spirit guides around you. So it can kind of, and the rainbow is there. So keep that vision that's beautiful, even if there's a bit of a journey to get through the door, just be aware that it kind of things are in their place and they're unfolding in appropriate time. So I also want to have a look at the spiritual gifts or divination you might have and can use. So firstly, we're going to look at sort of divination sort of abilities you have that help keep you in balance. And over here, divination abilities you maybe have that you're not using, that are a bit latent, that would help you if you're coming out of balance. So the power within. If I sound a little bit puffed, I had to run downstairs. I had to pause and run downstairs. Okay, the power within you at the moment. Fortune cookie, fortuitous. Yeah, you can bring good fortune in. Things will get better. This is better. You know that. You know that. And I also think fortune cookie can be like telling the future a bit. There's something a bit prophetic about you, and muse energy is a bit prophetic. Okay, what might be latent within that would help you if you were moving into the kind of mind space rather than the inspiration space? Wishbone, affirmation. Yeah, just believing in yourself again, affirming what you're doing. It doesn't need to be overthought. Okay, what about signs? Signs that you're in flow and in balance, signs that you might be going out of balance. So signs around being in balance. Seedlings, new growth, new beginnings. The change is all about that. You know, so you may sort of see seedlings, you may see sort of like gardens, you may see this on sort of like posters or pictures, or you just may think about things that they need to grow. They need to grow. And allowing the growth to occur. So this is sort of something that you may see or hear or think about if you're starting to tilt out of balance. Music. Okay, I would say songs that you hear, songs that come into your mind, things like that, lyrics that tell you that you know, thinking about things that you've grieved or lost, about change, all of those sort of things, anything like that. It may also be that certain types of music. It's interesting, again, in one of the other readings I talked about music in the minor key, which feels very melancholic. That may be similar. Like if you start to hear music in the minor key, then that may be something that is, you know, talking to you about the fact that you're moving beyond just the trust and the flow and the growth into something where you want to control it more in some way. So let's get you a spirit guide for each of these sides of things. So a spirit guide about staying in the flow, staying in the inspirational space. Archangel Uriel, illumination, ideas into form, inner power. Yeah, trust it. You're amused to others and others are amused to you. You are an inspiring person and the change processes are happening at the right time. Now, in terms of a spirit guide to help you when you get into the sort of mind space a little bit too much, is Archangel Raguel, relationship healing, calm, harmony. Okay. A lot of this has to do with, I think, because we had the grief thing up here, I think a lot of it has to do with the changes to relationships and interactions like that happen with the transformation. This is where, and you may want to lead and help others and so forth. This helps you not do this. This helps you stay in the flow, and it also helps you in healing if there are relationship issues that have come out of it. Okay, so I also want to get a wild card for each. So the wild card may be more energy about what we're talking about here, or it could be almost its opposite that you can bear in mind. So a wild card energy that's around when you're in that inspirational change space where you feel comfortable and in balance is divine masculine, control, leadership, determination. Okay, now we're getting a little bit of an extra piece of information here. I think this is what triggers you into that. It goes from you inspiring others and you being inspired to you wanting to be able to control the outcome. Particularly when the change gets big, there is something here where, and you go into your mind to do it, and it takes you away from the flow. It takes you out of balance. So I think thinking about your divine masculine and how you use that when you are kind of in the process of change would be helpful. Then when we look at the energy of the wild card, which either could be a help or it could be more of the energy around when you're out of balance, we get good romance, relationship, desire for a partner, love, couple. Okay, so it's going to be both here. It's going to depend. For some of you, this may be very much around relationship energy, and you get inspired and fall in love, and then you start to overthink it, and that could affect what was a good romance and kind of make it not work out the way you want. For others, it could be that you are doing whatever this is about and keeping this in balance, but when love comes into the picture, you kind of want to control it a bit more. But either way, it's got something to do with relationship. So let's see some questions you can ask. Questions you can ask when you feel in balance. Question you can ask when you're feeling out of the flow. So question around what keeps you in balance and in a temperance type of frame is Pisces. What if you believed in the power of your dreams? Yeah, just believe in the power of the dreams. Things will get better, as it says up there. It's belief. When we cease to believe and cease to have faith, that's when we start to have our mind take over. So it may be that this only triggers for particular things, and for some of you it may be about relationships more than anything. So let's see the question when you feel a little bit out of balance, when you're trying to control things with your mind. Phoenix. What will bloom from your ashes? Don't worry. This is very transformative energy. This is only really going to happen. I think most of the time you're pretty much in flow. But when there's big transformations, you try and control it too much. You don't want to grieve or let go. But there is always a process of that and change. But what will bloom from your ashes? Because this is actually, if you remember that this is going to get better, then you'll know that this is actually transformative in a very powerful way. Okay, pile 3, just to finish off, I'm just going to get you a blessing. So a blessing from the Temperance card about bringing yourself into balance, staying in balance. A blessing of the air. Okay, all right. So that goes back to the sense of communication, the mind, connecting it to the heart that I was saying at the beginning, and all this air energy. Like the mind is good. The mind is good. There's nothing wrong with that. This is a blessing to help you deal with the mind in a productive way. This is telling me that it's only when the change feels overwhelming that you go into that. So it's like getting that into balance. If you can get the way that you use your mind, which is powerful, pile 3, when you get that into balance, then you will stay in balance here. It's like how you use your mind. That's the key of everything for you, because it is powerful, and powerful minds need to be regulated a bit so that they don't overwhelm us. I hope that this resonated for you. Do go and see Reena's reading, because with this really strong mind, it would be interesting to see if that's coming up there, and also like other strengths you have that can bring all of that into balance as well. But beyond that, if this resonated for you, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.